All right. That's working. That's working. 2 days in a row. Is that working? I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll wait. I'll wait. Is it working now? Is it working? Yeah, there we go. Again, out of the home studio right now. So, appreciate you guys, bearing with me. All right. That'll hurt the replays, but that's okay. We'll power through. So we talked yesterday on the podcast on Tuesday. We're going in real time through some numbers about Brock Purdy this year. How many of his passes are deep throws, intermediate throws, behind the line of scrimmage throws, etc. And so here's some numbers. Now, I want to. These are my notes. These are my notes, handwritten notes. Here we go. Brock Purdy right now in the NFL, because there's a lot of is he check down Charlie type stuff going on. Brock Purdy, deep passing. Okay, these are air yards over 20 yards. Somebody just asked his GFF back, not quite. Air yards, deep throws, 20 yards plus, 11%. That's Brock's number. Intermediate throws, 23% of his numbers are intermediate, or of his throws are intermediate throws. Little rattled by the mic, I'm not going to lie. Short throws, 43% of his throws are short throws. Dak's number's 45. And behind the line of scrimmage throws, 14% of Brock's throws are behind the line of scrimmage. Quarterbacks with more behind the line of scrimmage throws, or at least a higher percentage of their throws coming behind the line of scrimmage, include Mahomes, Burrow. Obviously, I should have taken Burrow out of there. Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Jalen Hurts. So the conversation you may have heard on Tuesday was, how do those numbers compare to the Patrick Mahomes MVP season last year? And, well, here's the answer. Let me zoom out a little. So Brock in 23 on your left, Mahomes last year on the right. And as you can see, percentages put Brock in really good spot. Now, Brock is on pace for 470 pass attempts, which is 178 fewer than Mahomes' 648. But deep throws, 20 yards or more, Brock 11% this year, Mahomes 9% last year. By the way, Brock this year has 8 passing touchdowns on deep throws. That's second in the NFL. So his percentage is going to always, not always, but right now his percentage is, it matches up with the best quarterbacks in the league. The raw numbers, like on deep throws, you go, well, he's throwing the ball less overall. So how does that, compare to the guys who throw the ball down the field more? Well, look at this note at the bottom here, and then we'll get back to Mahomes. Brock's 8 deep touchdowns is second in the league. Tua, Dak, and Jalen Hurts all have 9. Brock has 38 attempts of 20 air yards or more. That is 18 fewer than Dak. That is 10 fewer than Jalen Hurts. And that is 7 fewer than Tua. Tonga Wala. So there's just some of the raw numbers for you. And the raw numbers and the percentages are different things. But all of this just screams efficiency. That's what it screams for Brock. All right, back to Mahomes. Last year MVP on the right, Brock current season on the left. Intermediate throws, Brock 23% of his throws are intermediate throws. In distance, Mahomes last year 21%. Brock is 5th in that category this year. Mahomes was 7th in that category last year. Short throws, the easy throws. And this is, these are the ones where people go, he just throws the ball short. I mean, that's what this video really is about. 43% of his throws are short throws. Dak is 45%, by the way. Last year, Mahomes, 43% of his throws were short throws. How about the behind the line of scrimmage throws? Brock's 14% this year. As you can see, I hope you can read my handwriting, 18% last year for Mahomes. So the biggest thing that holds Brock back, I think, is also one of the things that helps highlight his greatest strengths. And it's Shanahan. Like, on one hand, and this is the much more significant hand, I'm not saying Kyle is holding Brock back at all. Kyle is highlighting Brock, elevating Brock. Brock is elevating Kyle. It's a beautiful, beautiful symbiotic relationship. But the thing that I think prevents people from recognizing how much Brock does these things is pure volume. It's easy to see it when you see the total numbers, right? I think the eyeball test sometimes is a little more recognizes the raw numbers. Like I just see him do that a lot versus the efficiency of the number. The efficiency really comes out when you look at the numbers. You have to look at the numbers almost to see the efficiency. And I think that is the biggest thing when we talk about, why do people think Brock doesn't throw the ball deep, or why do people think he only throws it short, or I don't know why people think he only throws it short, but I understand at least kind of why it appears like he doesn't throw it deep, because it's doesn't throw it as much, period. He's just not going to throw it as much right now. Now, if he were on a different team, a lot of things would be different. But if Kyle had him throw the ball 650 times this year instead of 470 times this year, that might be worse for his efficiency, and it might be worse for the Niners. It would allow, that conversation for some people to kind of happen on an even plane. Well, but he doesn't throw it as much as Mahomes. These numbers to me are not saying Purdy this year is having the same year that Mahomes had last year. I think you have to acknowledge sometimes the less you do something, the harder it is to be efficient, but usually not. The more you do something, the harder it is to be efficient. And that's why I think for Brock coming into the year, it was like, well, let's see him play a whole season. Well, now we're seeing him play almost a full season, and the efficiency numbers not only holding, they're going up. And I think this goes back to Drew Brees' career. It goes back to the debate about how do you judge a guy who's drafted high versus how you judge a guy that's drafted low. And I would use an analogy. I'm very familiar with the modeling world, and the analogy would be like Mahomes or a top drafted quarterback like Luck or Trevor Lawrence. These are models that are just strolling through the mall, and somebody walks up to them and says, "Have you ever thought about being a model?" It's obvious immediately they have the physical traits that match up with the greats. And then there's Drew Brees, right? Maybe Steve Young, even Montana. It took a while in terms of finally getting his shot at Notre Dame, but nobody was walking through the mall looking at Drew Brees going, "Hey, man, have you ever thought about being a model?" No, nobody did that. Drew Brees had to go to casting call after casting call, headshot after headshot after headshot after headshot. And over time, people realized, oh my God, this thing that we thought was just a small sample size thing, there's all this hidden beauty within this quarterback. And that is the way it's going to be. There's no sense in really fighting that. It takes time. If you're not going to have the big explosive arm, if you're not going to be throwing it over the top from a raw number standpoint, right? You look at those percent, look at the top line on deep passing. Brock, 11% deep passes. Mahomes last year, MVP year, 9%. But the raw number is different. 70 deep throws last year for Mahomes, which actually is lower for him. Like that was 9th in the league. That'll be around Dak's. Well, it'll be around Dak's number this year. But I think it just, when you don't do it as much, and when I say as much, I just mean you throw it less, then it feels less impactful. And you go, well, let's look into the numbers. Okay, let's look into the numbers. But you're not going to win over the masses with efficiency numbers on 13 games. Now you win games and you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. And then people go, oh my God, that thing that I thought was kind of a flash in the pan isn't. But that's the way it is. And part of the way it is fundamentally nobody's fault other than you're going to throw it less, period. That's where the percentages come in. And that's why you look at the percentages. But he's just going to throw it less. He's just throwing it less. 178 fewer attempts on pace for than Mahomes this year. So anyway, there's a little deeper dive into what we talked about for a second yesterday. This is where I go back to the comments and make sure this microphone was working. I could tell you, rattled me. You got to be ready. You got to be something will. It's not a matter of if, but when. Something will go wrong. But glad you guys are here to help. That's why you do it. I guess if I didn't do it live, I would have known and just did a redo. But there's no redo here, so I'll put a little note in there that the audio gets fixed. Audio problem guy. Wanda says, funny how everyone called David the the chart sheet geek, and now everyone is using them. LOL. Not as efficient at Excel as Lombardi, so I handwrite in this case. I usually type my notes, but this one would be easier, I thought, to on it just I had 20 minutes this morning to put it all together, and it's easier for me at least to do it that way. Did we miss the weekly Aiden O'Connell breakdown? Yes. I do that show on the dark web. Whoa, Brock has more passing yards right now than Mahomes on 100 fewer attempts. You're telling me that's the reality? You're telling me that's what you think my numbers say? That's not what these numbers say. But we can real time look. You've already made it through the audio issues. Yeah, that's 185. So Brock's at 3,185. Mahomes is 3,127. And Brock has 100 fewer attempts. There you go. Now, I mean, that's where you start arguing about, and this is why we do the efficiency stuff. That's where you start. That was part of what I saw yesterday was like arguments about, and John brought it up yesterday on the podcast. Yak percentages. Every argument is going to require a deep dive. Although this isn't that deep of a dive. Mahomes wasn't blowing people out as much as Brock. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. Is this team is built to play from ahead, and so you're not going to throw the ball as much. But again, like that is going to be part of what gets people to buy in is seeing you, put a team on your arm, bring a team back. Legends are made not on efficiency stats. Bill Walsh loved that Joe Montana always put the ball in the exact right spot. Well, not always, but that was the thing more than anybody else. But what made Joe Montana wasn't everybody watching on their TV like, look at he put it right on Freddie Solomon's right hip. Perfect for Freddie to turn up field and get 7 more yards of yak. No, he was the comeback kid. I mean, he was a miracle comeback quarterback at Notre Dame, and then he was a miracle comeback quarterback with the Niners. It's, when people are like Joe Montana, what do they say? Like, hey, isn't that John Candy? They don't say, oh, he's put it right exactly where, right on the right hip bone. So it's all, if you want to become, a legendary NFL quarterback, you got to do all the things. You got to have the efficiency numbers that help you win, and you got to have the splash, the big heroic moments. Tiger Woods is dominant because he won tournaments by double-digit strokes, but what made him a legend is like beating Rocco Mediate on one knee and the chip in at Augusta and like all these crunch time moments. So you need to have that too. It's all of that stuff together. It's honestly against the Niners at least what holds Dak back, but it's all the stuff together. So all of that is to say, like the numbers here project very well for the possibility that the Niners have their franchise quarterback. I also understand when people go, well, is he truly great? Because I think for the most part, truly great gets defined in crunch time. Big Shot Bob, Robert Ory's nickname. Nobody can tell you how many points per game he averaged. Adam Vinatieri, clutch kicker. It's not because people are looking at it going, oh, look at his percentages from 40 to 49 yards. Jake Moody hits a game-winning kick. People will go, all right. I don't know about you. Moody's been nailing extra points since the Cleveland game, basically. Anybody go, oh, I'm not worried about it anymore? If he were to line up with the season on the line in the playoffs, game-winning kick, win it, just the Cleveland situation over again, are you going to be sitting there going, well, Moody's been really good from 30 to 39? Or are you going to say, well, the last time he had a clutch kick, he missed it? That's what you'll say. So it continues on here. Comment. Steve Young explained perfectly how someone like Brock is overlooked. He said, we focus on all the measurables, but you can't measure if you have the force. Uh, that's true, but if you're gonna become a legend because you got the inner force, it takes a little longer for people to see it and buy it. And if he keeps playing with this level of efficiency, then he will get plenty of leash to play for many years and to prove that he's got it. Did the scouts get it all wrong, or do Brock's skill set fit perfectly with the Niners offense and maybe not so much in other offenses? Well, they got it wrong. There's no question about it. Because there's plenty of other teams that, you're not drafting starting quarterbacks in the 6th round. Like, if you think a guy might be able to be your backup, you'll take him in the 6th round, right? So they got it wrong. But I also think they're a lot. So much of the draft is you're playing the percentages. Like, all right, how often does a person with these measurables become a first round worthy quarterback or second round or third round or whatever? And that's why I thought it was so dumb this draft season when people were like, Brock Purdy's going to change the way they draft quarterbacks. All right, well, that'd be stupid on their part. Are they going to just stop? If they're going to start drafting all the Brock Purdys, they're going to get a bunch of not Brock Purdys. So I thought that was really weird, short-sighted. It made no sense. It's not. I mean, I'm trying to think of like what a first-round equivalent would be. It'd be like it would be as if you said, "Well, uh, you should start drafting Brock Purdy's," and then somebody was like, "Yeah," and then took Mac Jones in the top 10. Like, well, Purdy. So, I mean, it's not the same. Purdy's more athletic. Maybe that's not a great comp. But my point is, yes, they missed. And, if you take 10 more Purdy 2.0s, you're probably going to miss on those guys too. He's looking like he's just the exception. Just like after Breeze got drafted, if you started just drafting guys that you thought were kind of weaker arm, but really smart, you probably wouldn't have ended up. The odds are you wouldn't have ended up with an MVP, Pro Bowl, Hall of Fame level quarterback. Yeah, Baker. Oops, Baker. Sean, wasn't that point about drafting for processing speed and experience, finding new ways to evaluate that? Mac is a bad comp for Purdy. Sure, but I mean, I know we've got the team of guys out of Nashville that have nailed processing power, but I thought CJ Stroud was supposed to be bad at processing, even though actually they came out and said, "Well, no, that report was incorrect." I just think the point is kind of like I don't. The offenses are so catered in college. I don't know that you can really figure that out. I think if you could I mean, maybe the technology will allow for processing for you to nail processing power, but they were trying to do that already. They were doing the Wonderlic. Like they understood that brain power mattered. Maybe the Wonderlic wasn't a good test. Maybe it was. I don't know, but they understood. Like they've been trying to nail that for a long time. My point is, if you're going to change the way you draft, thinking you're going to get the next Purdy, I don't think you are. I think he's an exception. Just like, you know, you draft the Carson Wentz's, and I mean those guys are 50-50 when they've got all the elite traits. So you think you're going to just start hitting at that rate when you draft guys that don't project that way? Not buying it. I think he's an exception. The biggest takeaways are QBs who massively overachieve with mediocre programs. You're saying you want that. You want guys. Yeah, maybe. I mean, but there's so many other factors. Coaching. Uh, Iowa State is not a great program, but I mean, so that would be your argument. It's like you take an Iowa State guy. Yeah, I mean Romo. I don't know. I don't think there are as many patterns. Bill Parcells had his whole breakdown of like he's got to have this many. He's got to have this many starts. He's got to have this good a completion percentage. There's 3 or 4, whatever they were. And I just don't think there's as many patterns when it comes to finding elite quarterbacks as you want there to be, because you got to find somebody. You got to draft somebody. The biggest loss to the Niners would be Trent versus Debo. Purdy still had a good play, in those losses. Yeah, I mean, he made some turnovers late because of the situations they were in, but I thought he was pretty efficient. That Bengals game had great numbers with the poor run game, horrible D. Then he turned the ball over. You're right. He was efficient in that game. Hold on. Where'd this one go? Did you ever think at any point this offseason be an MVP candidate? Hell no. If I did, I would have bet on him 10,000 to 1. There's another comment here. Scott asks, why do 49er fans lose their mind when others say he's in the MVP or is the MVP of your team? He's still very good. He's a top QB, but not the MVP. I think just because arguing about sports is fun. It's fun to, like, pretend like you're battling to the death over something that doesn't really matter. Question, is Tom Brady an exception too? Hell yes. You know what? That's a great comment. It'd be like after Brady, if people are like, seeing Tom Brady, it's going to change the way people draft quarterbacks. Okay, good luck with that. Wasn't Brock supposed to play for Saban? I don't think he was supposed to play for Saban. I think Saban told him he was too short. Brock is a fine QB. All the talk about Brock Purdy is exhausting. Just play and win. Nice analysis, but I can't quite tell if it's passive aggressive or not. It's the internet, so the odds are that it is. But you hear 20 minutes in the video, so maybe it's not. I don't know. Don't particularly care. Stop talking about Brock Purdy. Not gonna happen. I promise you that. Why would anybody do that? 27 million people watched the 49ers the other night. And you want me to stop talking about one of the hottest topics in sports? That is also fascinating. Like, Dak Prescott is just perennially one of the hottest topic in sports. And I actually think if Dak were to win the MVP this year, it'd be an incredible kind of. I don't think it would hold up well in history. Like McCaffrey winning the MVP this year would be guaranteed to hold up well over the course of history. I don't think Dak winning the MVP I don't think Dak winning the MVP would hold up. Now, you could argue, did Matt Ryan's MVP hold up? Yes. Is Matt Ryan a Hall of Famer? I don't think so. The numbers might tell you otherwise, the raw numbers. And so maybe, but the point is, even if Matt Ryan's not a Hall of Famer, that was a legitimate MVP. And so even if Dak's not a Hall of Famer, which I don't think he is, if he continues on the pace he's on and they have, they win the NFC East, then, he'll be a legitimate MVP if he wins the award. But it's just a weird year for that. This is not necessarily about that award. This is just about trying to figure out how good the player is. In the case of Brock Purdy, and whether or not he will turn into, the kind of guy that can be the expensive guy. Come for the guy, stay for the football focus. This did not intend to be GFF, but look at its numbers scribbled on paper. I guess it's clearly GFF. Nick Wright is everything that's wrong about journalism. Is Nick Wright a journalist? I don't think Nick Wright's a journalist. Nick Wright's a taker. So, all right. That's GFF. Well, we're 2 for 2 audio problems today. I should be back in my home later today, and so hopefully we won't have. Oh, it sounds fine now. We got to figure it out. I'm blaming other things. It's my fault. Didn't have the audio set up correctly. Not used to didn't have my systems in place. My operations dialed in. Road game. This is the evidence. Road game gets you rattled. So anyway, thanks for hanging in there. And got to roll. Got things to get to, as you do too. If you're here live or later, appreciate it. Hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel. And leave a comment, not live, but once I end this video, leave a comment that says, hang in for a minute, the audio gets better. Gonna have to wear that. Got to move on though. Plays after critical errors. PACE, pace. How do you respond after critical errors? Plays after critical errors. Great lesson for life, YouTubing, and don't worry, guy. I'm sure Einstein scribbled the theory of relativity on a piece of paper too. Einstein's 3 biggest breakthroughs happened in this. I think it was within a span of. It was within a year. I just started his biography. We'll see how much further I get. All right, got to roll. Thanks for hanging, everybody.